A few years ago, me and my old man moved into a condo. Nothing spectacular, just a bigger place for our expanding family. We went through a rutch patch and split up, but we still live together. I know, not everyone agrees, but whatever. We worked opposite one another, and I slept on the fold-out couch for a while. I began to notice a lot of noises coming from the kitchen at night. Typically, it would start at around 11 or 12, and it was harmless at first. I told him about the noises, but he brushed them off. A few nights later, they started to get more intense. I could hear dishes being moved around and clinking on each other. Then I started to hear the drawers and cabinet open slightly and close. I was able to get a recording of the sounds. The couch was located right across the hall, in front of the kitchen door, so it was a decent enough recording. I showed the recording to him, and it made him second guess what I said. So one night, he sat out with me and just listened, and sure enough, it started. And it was very loud, and you could tell it was movement in the kitchen, as if it was in use. We sort of just laughed it off for a while, even after the fridge door opened up one night. We would joke and call it our friendly ghost, ask what it was cooking, just being silly and stupid. After working on our issues, we both got back together and things were fine. For a bit. We didn't even notice the noises as much. A few months ago, out of nowhere, things started to get rough. Not bad, but definitely not fun to deal with. Pictures started coming off our walls at random, even breaking some of the glass ones. Books would get moved off shelves. Most of it we could see or hear. Then things started to move and fall off of our desk. Most recently, it's been quiet again, which is nice, but I just don't like dealing with this. We're looking to move, but it's an expensive area here. Me and my old man have been taking the advice to stop acknowledging and engaging in the ghost's activities. We've been pretending not to notice or rationalize it as something else. The issue is, our kids now think we are playing a game with them, so they're more hyper-aware now and drawing attention to everything that happens. The more we ignore it, the more they think we're joking and they acknowledge it. They're kids, so I don't want to get upset with them for thinking this, but I'm not sure how to be serious enough with them to explain that mommy and daddy are not making these things happen as a joke. Last night was family movie night. We were watching the new Croods movie since my kids haven't seen it and they loved the first. The entire time we were watching it, we had Xbox controllers flying off our desks, water bottles being knocked off tables. It's becoming hard for us to ignore while the kids laugh about it jokingly, saying, "Oh, it's just our ghost friend." And it's so uneasy to hear them say that. I told my Elsie about all this and she suggested that she come stays with me again and smudge the place. We are indigenous, since I never learned how to properly use my white sage. I don't want her to take away from her life just to travel over here for this, but I guess she can sense how stressed it's making me. I'm at a loss. It's been going on for 4 years now. My family and I have always been animal lovers. I've never known a time when we didn't have cats or dogs with us, and I feel like they've helped raise me. When my father was in college, he adopted 2 cats named Tigger and Cedo. Tigger passed away due to coyote, and after she passed, Cedo was never the same. She was grumpy and preferred to be by herself, but I would annoy her with my love anyway. One night, I was carrying her in a wicker basket with some blankets. I would bring her room to room with me as I cleaned up. I'd been petting her and listening to her purr when she suddenly stopped moving. I was maybe 12, and I remember praying for the first time to bring her back to me. It was awful to bring her out to my mom and tell her she had passed. I had a tradition, whenever a pet died, that I would make a concrete headstone with little marbles and their names on them. I had set it on our kitchen counter to dry and left it there. The next morning, I checked on it and found a small piece of her fur right in the center. I went around to everyone and asked if they had placed it there. They all said they hadn't. It felt like she was giving me one last piece of her. I kept it in a tiny knick-knack tea kettle I had, and it lives in there with a few other whiskers I had found weeks following her passing. When I was younger, I had that first encounter at our first house. It was the night that my mom was changing my window blinds and got them to the store, and since they had to repair something, I had to spend one night without blinds, which wasn't too bad. Anyway, I always had a pain falling asleep, so about 1.5 hours in my bed trying to fall asleep with the moon shining up my room. At one point, I felt really weird. Felt like something wasn't right. You know that feeling when you walk somewhere and you feel like someone is watching you? You turn around and you make eye contact with someone? It was just the same. I tried to fight it since I wanted to fall asleep, since it had been a bit I was in bed already. But curiosity took control. I opened my eyes and saw it. Suspended, head down on the right top side of my window, was that big black shadow staring at me. So deep that I could see the sky beside it, not even a single reflective light would shine through. As I started panicking, I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I was paralyzed. Only my eyes could move anymore. It took a few seconds and it left. But it took me a while to actually unparalyzed. It was actually the next morning that I realized that I stayed like that until I was out of energy and fell asleep. For years, I kept that story to myself. Until my sister came to me 6 weeks ago and around a cup of coffee told me a story where she had encountered it as well in her room, but the shadow was beside her bed. And the story is practically the same. We moved to that house when I was younger, and since day one, weird things were happening. We had a mountain dog, and in our old house, she would literally spend her whole winter days sleeping outside in the snow. She liked so much the cold, you guessed it, she would always spend the summers lying on the basement's ceramic to cool down. But not in this house. On the first night, I already could feel that something was going on. My dog was always sleeping in my bed. I went ahead the first night and closed the light. About 4 minutes into complete darkness, my dog on my left side and my room door on my right, I saw my dog raising her head and staring in the long, dark corridor. She stared for about 9 seconds before she started crying and kind of panicking. I freaked out, opened the lights, nothing was there. I went back to bed, the dog lay down beside me again. 10 minutes later, just the same, but now she's growling. I opened the light, she jumped out of the bed and ran into my parents' room. She never went into the basement since, and every time she would come would be during the day because I would kind of force her in my room with food. She would take it, look nervously around her and run back upstairs with her tail in her arse, even during crazy hot weather. When playing on my computer at night once, my computer mouse flew from my desk to my face at about a 45-degree angle up, which is impossible to have accidentally happened. There's even a night where we threw a party, and as we all went to sleep at the end of the evening in a deep, dark basement, we were still talking in bed until we fell asleep, sleeping like 6 to 8 or 9 people in each room. Anyway, about 7 people in the room beside mine saw my friend that we were hearing talking to our other friend outside in a tent at the same moment, open their door abruptly, burst into their room, open the light, said some bullshit, and closed the light and slapped the door. Well, at least, so they say. One of the girls in the room came into our room, opened our light, and asked what the fuck. And this is where the story gets weird. My friend never stepped foot in the house. He was outside the whole time. Neither did he open the light, since it was pitch black and about 15 people would have seen it. But on the other side, there were 7 that all got woke up by the same thing. Our friend busting into their room, and opening the light. Sometimes at night, I would hear the ground crack, as if someone would be walking towards my room from the end of the corridor, and it would stop right at my door. Lots of other little things happened, but the only attack incident we've had so far was the mouse in the face. I've been sitting on this for 4 years. I know because it happened when my daughter was a newborn. She was a few months old. Let me start with, I'm a skeptical person. I believe sometimes our minds prime us when we hear a scary story, and then shortly after we see or experience a scary story. Now, I also believe in paranormal. So it was a Sunday, and my spouse and I decided, after putting our daughter to bed, we would spend some time together and play Minecraft. And so we did just that. Our daughter to bed and play Minecraft together, during which our daughter awakes in need of food. My wife goes to take care of her, and I had the strangest, creepiest feeling I ever experienced. Like some other presence was there. It was so strong that I paused the game. My wife is not a fan of even the zombie sounds on Minecraft. Such when we play it, it's in peaceful mode. No zombies, skeletons, or other mobs. So I noticed said feeling, but brushed it aside. Skeptic in me, my imagination, etc. I thought about asking my spouse when she came back, but again, I brushed it aside. And just as I pushed the idea out, she asks, "You noticed anything strange while I was gone?" So I said, "Strange how? Creepy?" I proceeded to tell her my experience of the strange feeling, and she says while she was tending to our daughter, she saw what she thought were shadows moving. Well, we stopped what we were doing and brought our daughter into our room and went to bed. My spouse works as a CNA at nursing homes and care facilities quite a bit, and she's had her own scary experiences, such she doesn't let horror movies or anything deemed scary play in our house. Okay, so this experience was actually my mom's. When I was 9, about 24 years ago, my mom's older sister passed away very unexpectedly. She was only 35. It was just a very tragic situation. Anyways, my grandparents, mom, and other aunts were devastated, and I remember it just being a very sad time. So fast forward to about a month to 6 weeks after her passing, we just moved into a new house, and all of this was going on while we were waiting on an autopsy report, cause of death, etc. So one night, my mom woke from a dead sleep and felt compelled to go down to the kitchen. As she turned the light on, to her absolute shock, there sat my Aunt Veronica on the bar stool at the kitchen's counter. Mom said she looked just as she did in life, not ghostly or transparent or whatever. She told my mom she knew everyone was worried, and she apologized for how she left, but she said she had to go. She told my mom she was at peace and her passing was all for the best. Mom said she looked so peaceful and happy. She told mom she was going to wake up and not believe this happened, so she was going to give her proof. She said she would be receiving a check for a large amount that we weren't expecting, and when she got that check, mom would know that what happened was real and not a dream. Well, lo and behold, the next day, thinking that was all a dream, mom ventured out to the mailbox, and inside was a tax credit check for a large amount, and in that moment, she burst into tears. She unequivocally knew that what had happened the night before was real. This isn't the only time she has visited us since she passed. She comes to me in dreams every now and then. I actually keep her Bible on my nightstand, and every time I dream of her, I write it down on a piece of notebook paper folded up inside. I know that she is really visiting me. It's not just a dream. Like I said, the circumstances surrounding her death were very tragic. I will mention that our entire family was under the impression that she had died of a heart attack. She did have a pre-existing heart condition. But it wasn't until my granddad passed away in 2020 that we saw the actual autopsy report. My aunt actually committed suicide by taking 30 prescription pills at one time. This is something my grandparents carried with them all those years and never revealed that to my mom, her sister, or anyone else. I think the actual cause of her death is the reason why she visits so often. I assume there is a lot of guilt she has about how she chose to go about her death. Either way, my aunt was the most wonderful person. She never had kids or a husband. We honestly talk about and think about her every day, even all these years later. This is one of just many memorable encounters with her following her death. And since my grandmother and grandfather have passed, they accompany her now in our dreams. When I was around 6 years old, I saw something very, very scary that sometimes even gave me chills to this day. I was in a room with my grandma and asked her where was a toy bear that I liked. She said it was in her room and the lights were out. When I was about to turn them on, I saw it. It was right in the corner. A boy, a little bit taller than me. He had shorts and no shirt, relatively skinny and short hair. What was even weirder than that? He was emanating some kind of smoke, a dark smoke or something. I felt like something was very wrong and he started to walk towards me while I froze. I could see his eyes, but that's about it. No expression because his body was almost entirely darkness. Then I feel someone behind me. It was my grandma with a shocked look on her face. She turned the lights on and he disappeared, but some traces of smoke flew out of the window. What scared me the most on this was the reaction from my grandma. She was scared shitless and drove me to some kind of church or spiritism center. It's called something like this in Brazil. I guess it was to make sure that doesn't happen again. It worked, but still. Her room gives me creeps to this day. I have a pretty interesting story that's given me chills the few times I've heard it. So obviously, this didn't happen to me, but to a co-worker friend while we both worked at a nursing home. I 100% believe this happened because this person is very level-headed, and I haven't known her to lie or make things up in all the years I knew and worked with her. This happened very late at night in a nursing home when she had gone into a patient's room to give some medication. She said she didn't make it further than the doorway because she saw the patient was sitting up in bed, talking to something that obviously wasn't human, who was sitting on the end of her bed. She described it as a completely black cloaked figure. When she got to the doorway, the patient and the figure both looked over to her, and she couldn't make out any facial features except for a very large and exaggerated smile. She promptly pooped her pants and ran to the nurse's station to grab another nurse to go back with her. When she got to the room, the patient was still sitting up, but alone, and said something to the effect of, "You scared my friend. He's hiding in the closet." She didn't look in the closet. She thinks this may have been something like the angel of death, because the patient was going downhill, and ended up passing a few weeks after that. She may have given more detail, but this is all I remember now, because this happened some years ago. So I don't really know how to start these things. So I'll start by saying my family has always been sensitive to the paranormal or supernatural, etc. I'll begin with when I was about 8 years old and my brother was 9. We had the day off of school. My mum popped to the shops literally 5 minutes down the road. We were upstairs just talking and annoying each other, you know, as siblings do. All of a sudden, we heard this big hearty laugh followed by, "Hello?" coming from downstairs. We were home alone. We looked at each other shocked at what we just heard. My brother and I looked down the stairs and yelled out to Mum. No response. Anyways, after we confirmed we were still home alone, I said, "That was strange." My brother confirmed. Then after that, we heard running water. We checked the bathroom, downstairs. No taps were running or leaking. So when Mum got home, we told her what had happened, and she just sort of shrugged it off because she's experienced stuff like that all the time. She just told us not to be afraid. Now, there were bumps in the night and shadowy figures spotted all the time. I'd seen the ghost of my cat after he was struck by a car. All of that didn't bother me too much. But one day, my brother, our friend and myself decided to go bushwalking at the end of our cul-de-sac. We took sticks and stuff to protect us from snakes, we live in Australia, and whatever we might come across. Nothing we had would have protected me from what I saw that day. We were walking through the bush, whacking the weeds and whatnot, having so much fun. Then we came to a stop at this fairly large pond, and I decided to stay there while my brother and friend went further. I was just looking out in the middle of the pond and thought to myself, it looks like there might have been a bridge going across at one point. At this time, I was feeling pretty calm and happy. I could hear my brother and friend talking and laughing in the distance. Just staring out at the water, then this very uneasy feeling came over me, and I went to call out to my brother and friend. But before I could make a sound, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a hooded figure. Its face was bone on one side and rotting flesh on the other. I felt fear wash over me. When I went to yell out to my brother and friend, I heard a splash. I looked down and the water was calm, like nothing had happened. I immediately screamed for my brother and friend, and they came running to me and asked me what happened. I told them I need to get out of here, so they took me back home. I don't know what that thing was, but it scared the living shit out of me. So a couple of months ago, I was putting my son to sleep. Same boring routine. Teeth brushed, hair brushed, bottle with a story, and then rock him to sleep. My partner and I take turns, so this night it was my turn. So we'd done our nightly routine, and I was rocking him to sleep. Had music playing and singing to him. He had his head resting on my shoulder, and was just laying there enjoying my horrible singing. Then he raises his head and looks behind me, behind the rocking chair. Then he changes sides and looks down behind the rocking chair. He does this a couple of more times, and I thought to myself, something must have caught his eye. I told him to stop being silly and to lay back down. As he lay his head back down, I felt a cool breath on the back of my neck. My son then lifted his head and laughed while looking behind me. I got up and looked for any rational explanation, but I couldn't find one. There was nothing. I tell this story because tonight something similar happened to my partner, and he's a skeptic when it comes to ghosts and whatnot. We had done the normal bedtime routine, nothing out of the ordinary. So my partner read our son a story while he had his bottle. Then my partner was rocking him while singing. He could have sworn he heard a childish giggle come from behind him. He, being the skeptic he is, ignored it and continued to rock our son. A few minutes later, he hears it again, and our son responded by laughing. Then he heard once more before he put our son down his cot. He came out and told me what happened, freaked out. I checked our baby monitor, and there's been orbs floating around. I know some people don't believe in orbs, but I wholeheartedly believe they are spirit's energy. Also, my brother lives with us, and he's up at night, and hears our son talking to himself. He's only a year old, so it's more baby babbling than anything else, but yeah, I believe children can see what we cannot. My parents had bought me a rescue horse. I named him Handsome because he was a very handsome horse. He was left in a field with no grass and only thistles to eat, so he was fairly skinny. I automatically fell in love with him. I only had him for 6 months because he sadly had to be put down because he had a brain tumour that made him stumble and confused. But I thought to myself, at least he had a good 6 months. The vet who put him down got his friend to bury Handsome on the property free of charge. I was so thankful that I got to know Handsome. He had a beautiful soul, even after being mistreated. Anyways, that afternoon, my mum went out to feed the other horse and our pony. She couldn't find them, So she walked down the hill and around the side where Hanson was buried. There was our horse and pony with their heads bowed down towards the grave. 3 of our next door neighbours' horses broke through our fence and were also there, heads bowed. It's like they were having their own little funeral for him. That night, I was sitting in the lounge and looked out the window. There was our other horse in the stable, and the pony was standing just outside. But there was a third horse. I got up and looked out the window, thinking it was one of the neighbours again. But then it started walking towards the window and up beside the house. I went out to the side door to get a closer look, but it was gone. I felt an overwhelming sense of warmth and started crying. I thought to myself, Hanson came to say goodbye one last time. Anyways, a few years ago, I was chilling at home. It was late at night. I think I was about 17 or 18 at the time. My parents and brother were asleep and my phone started ringing. It was one of my aunties from England calling on Facebook Messenger. I quickly thought to myself, oh no, this can't be good. My nanny Jean, my mum's mum, must have passed. I answered the call and said, hi auntie, what's up? All I hear is sobbing on the phone. She's trying to talk, but she was so choked up. I asked, did Nanny Jean pass? She replied no. A few seconds passed and she continued, it's Uncle Glenn, sweetheart. He passed away in his sleep. My heart dropped. My throat closed up. I was speechless. I started crying and I went to wake up my dad to let him know what had happened. My Uncle Glenn was my mum's brother and they were super close, so I didn't want to let my mum know just yet. Thought we would tell her in the morning. My dad had a conversation with my auntie and then a little while later, he hung up and comforted me and told me to try and get some sleep. I went to my room and cried myself to sleep. A few hours went past and I woke up. What I thought was my mum or dad sitting on my bed. I felt a warm hand on my cheek, followed by a stroke of my hair. I opened my eyes to see no one in my room. I sat up quickly, confused, thinking I was sure of what I felt. I honestly think it was my uncle coming to say his goodbyes and to let me know he was okay. So you know how they always tell you that little kids can see spirits more than adults can? Well, this morning I was putting laundry away in my 1-year-old's closet with the door swung open, blocking my view of his window and wall. I could, however, look through the crack where the door hinge was and see his window, and if I put my face right up to the door hinge, I could see a good space in front of his window as well. You know, perspective. Anyway, I'm putting away the laundry and for about a minute and a half, I hear him just giggling and going ham. I look through the door hinge and see his window, and see the curtain move like someone is pulling it around themselves. I put my face closer to the hinge to see better, and see that my 1-year-old is about a foot away from his window, laughing and staring right out the curtain. I watched for about 5 more seconds, and saw the curtain move again, like it was being pulled around someone with the intent of hiding them. Then I watched my 1-year-old walk up to the curtain. I looked away to hang up laundry again, and didn't even think anything of it because I assumed my 5-year-old was playing hide and seek with his brother. They do it all the time. Well, I finish with the laundry and walk out of the room, and turn off the lights and call my sons by name to follow me out of the room. I walk into my entryway where I can see my living room because I'm headed back to the laundry room. My 5-year-old is laying on the couch, watching TV. There's no way he could have gone to the living room without me seeing him, which means he's been there the whole time. Was my son playing with his spirit? Or was I just imagining seeing the curtain move? I think it's important to note that I do have a very small fan in my son's room going 24/7, but it's not large enough to cause the curtain to move. It's a heavy blackout curtain, and a gust of air wouldn't cause the curtain to wrap around like someone was hiding in it. Also, important to note, in my opinion, is we live in a fairly new build and no one has ever passed away in, around, or on my property.